The mirror breathed. A pale mist spread across its old glass, and in that fog, 3 small handprints appeared, followed by a larger one, long-fingered, crooked. Sarah froze in the doorway. Mark pulled their children, Emily and Jacob, behind him. The chandelier swayed, the floor creaked, and from the parlor, a single piano note rang out. Slow, wrong, like a child testing keys in the dark. Emily whispered, "Mom." Sarah opened her mouth, but the mirror cleared for an instant, showing not only her reflection, but a woman's face behind hers, sad, pale, dressed in black. Then a voice drifted from the staircase. "Don't let them touch the glass." The piano stopped. The chandelier stilled. Upstairs, a door shut softly, as if someone had finished their warning. And then footsteps began on the stairs, slow, steady, coming down. Hours earlier, the day had been ordinary. The family had arrived at the Myrtles plantation, its white columns rising behind moss-draped oaks. A tour guide, Mr. Carter, welcomed them, his calm voice carrying weight. "This house remembers," he said. "Treat it with respect." Inside, the air felt colder. Portraits stared from the walls, and the parlor held a quiet piano. "Some nights," Carter said with a smile that wasn't quite a smile, "guests hear a note." They passed a tall mirror framed in gold. "Some say it holds sorrow," he added. Sarah looked quickly and saw only herself. She felt silly for being uneasy, but when the group scattered, Sarah's family found themselves alone. That's when the mirror fogged. That's when Emily whispered, "I saw breath." Sarah tried to laugh it off until a woman appeared in the doorway. She wore a dark dress, her eyes kind but sad. "Please don't touch the mirror," she said softly. Then she turned. Sunlight caught her for a second, and she was gone, like a picture fading. Mark searched the hall, returning pale. "No one's there," he said. The mirror fogged again. The piano played another note. The floorboards creaked closer to the door. Sarah whispered to the empty air, "We're only guests. We'll be careful." The handprints slowly faded. For a moment, the house seemed to step back. Then a sound came from behind them. One clear footstep on the stairs. Then another. They turned together. The woman on the stairs held one finger to her lips. "Quiet," she whispered, then turned her head toward the parlor as if listening for rain. The air thinned, like the house had pulled in a breath and refused to let it go. Mr. Carter stepped in from the porch, worry hiding behind his tour guide smile. "Everyone all right?" His eyes found the mirror, then the woman on the stairs. He blinked once, slow, like he recognized her, and the color left his face. "Okay," he said gently. "Let's take a moment on the porch." But the woman in black shook her head. She lifted her hand, palm out, warning them to stay. The green scarf around her head seemed to catch light that wasn't there. "Not yet," she mouthed. A single piano key rang from the parlor, one note, soft and lonely. The chandelier chimed the way glass does when a small tremor passes through a room. Jacob squeezed Mark's hand 3 times. Emily pressed against Sarah's side and whispered, "Mom, who is she?" Mr. Carter answered without taking his eyes off the woman. "Some people call her Grace," he said. "A helper. When she comes, the house is active." He swallowed. "Grace tries to keep other things away." "Other things," Mark said, voice tight. "Keep still," Grace said, not loudly, but with a weight that settled everyone's feet. The fog on the mirror thickened like storm clouds. Shapes moved under it, small outlines like children's faces pressing close from the other side. Little palms printed the glass again, 1, 2, 3. Tiny fingers spread, slid, and were gone. Emily made a tiny sound and covered her mouth. Grace took a step down, though it didn't creak for her. "You're guests," she told them, still watching the mirror. "So be guests. Don't shout. Don't run. Don't touch the glass." She glanced at Jacob. "And don't let it call you by name." "How would it?" Mark began. The mirror spoke his name. It didn't sound like a voice. It sounded like air pressed through cold metal, like a whisper dragged across him. "Mark," it breathed, and his name frosted on the inside of the glass, letter by letter, as if a finger wrote it backward from another word. Mark flinched. Sarah grabbed his sleeve. "Don't answer," Grace said sharply. "It learns how you sound." The fog thinned, then cleared, leaving only the room and the family inside it. Mr. Carter took a careful breath. "We'll walk to the porch now." Slow and steady. Grace shook her head again, but softer this time, like agreeing with his carefulness. "Do not turn your backs to it," she said. "Face the hall. Move left. Small steps." They did. One step. Two. The floorboards complained, old wood telling old stories. The portrait by the stairs, an older man with solemn eyes, seemed to follow them, but Sarah told herself portraits always did that. She kept Emily tucked close, felt the quick bird. The face in the mirror opened its mouth in a silent scream. No sound, only a rush of cold that slid across the porch like fog. Emily froze, arms stretched toward Grace's waiting hand. "Take my hand," Grace said, calm and firm. Emily grabbed it. The cold snapped like a string. The letters on the glass blurred, as if a sleeve wiped them from the inside. The door eased shut against the brass stop and stayed. People on the porch kept rocking and talking, unaware. Only Sarah, Mark, Emily, Jacob, Mr. Carter, and Grace stood in the little pocket of quiet where fear collects. "Good girl," Grace told Emily. "You didn't answer." Mr. Carter's voice was steady, like a dock under their feet. "We'll change places," he said. "We'll sit near the crowd. Everyone stand with me." Slow steps. They moved as one, sliding along the porch rail to a knot of tourists telling a funny story about a cat that liked lemonade. The sound of laughter pushed back the thin edge of cold. Emily sat between her parents. Jacob leaned against Mark, pretending not to watch the foyer. The house settled. The chandelier didn't chime. The mirror cleared to ordinary glass. Sunlight poured through oaks like warm syrup and draped itself over shoulders and hands. "Water?" Mr. Carter asked. "A snack?" He was building normal things, brick by brick. Sarah nodded. "Thank you." Her voice sounded far away, like it had been walking too long. Emily squeezed Grace's fingers and whispered, "Do they hurt?" Grace smiled a little. "They try, but they can't keep me." "What?" Jacob asked, louder than he meant to. "Why us?" "The house listens," Grace said. "When a family is loud with love, it leans in." Jacob frowned. "That's not fair." "No," Grace said. "It isn't." For a while, the world held. Mr. Carter brought a basket of wrapped cookies and more water. Emily laughed at a story Jacob made up about a frog that wore a hat to church. The wind moved like a good dog, close, friendly, not pulling. Grace stood where shadow met sun, watchful as a shepherd. Then a bell rang from the far end of the porch. Next to her, a young woman called, cheerful. A wave of people stood. Chairs scraped. Conversations broke and ended. The porch loosened its grip on the bells as the crowd flowed inside. "We'll sit this one out," Mr. Carter told the young woman gently. "Full porch privileges for this family." She gave him a quick, understanding nod and led the group through the foyer. For a moment, the open door framed the mirror and the chandelier. Both were still. Then the door closed. The lock thumped. Silence returned like a tide rolling back. "Evening comes early here," Grace said, looking at the line of trees. "We should plan before the light changes." "Plan?" Mark asked. "Where you'll be at dusk," Mr. Carter said. "Crowds help. Bright rooms help. We can seat you in the dining room during peak hours. After that, if you'd like to check into the cottages out back, they're newer, fewer mirrors." "You mean stay?" Sarah asked. Her voice wanted to be steady and almost was. "We have a hotel reservation in town. You can go now," Mr. Carter said kindly. "No one will judge. But if you want the story you came for, you can have it and still be safe if we're careful." "What happens at night?" Jacob asked. Grace answered. "It tells its favorite parts. It sets the table and asks everyone to sit." Emily shivered. "I don't like its favorite parts." "Then we won't feed them," Grace said. "We'll tell our own." They agreed to dinner in the dining room. Bright lights, other guests, staff near. After that, they would decide. Mr. Carter excused himself to make arrangements. Grace lingered, eyes on the door. "He's good," she said. "He remembers how to listen." "What about you?" Sarah asked. "Will you come with us?" "As far as I can," Grace. Lamp by the door. The room breathed with them, slow and even. For an hour, nothing happened. For 2 hours, the cottage was only a cottage. Somewhere after that, when night wears its deepest coat, Sarah opened her eyes. She didn't know why. The little lamp still glowed like a candle in a jar. Mark's breathing was steady. Emily and Jacob slept close on the other bed, cheeks warm, hands open. The world was the sound of crickets and one far owl calling like a question. Then came the softest thing. Her name said inside her head as if it had grown there. Sarah. She didn't move. She thought of the path with the oaks. 1 lamp, 2, 3, 4. She pictured the porch rail cool under her hand. She counted Jacob's squeezes, 1, 2, 3, until her heart matched them. Sarah, the voice hummed, curious. Are you awake? She kept her mouth closed. She kept her mind inside the picture of trees. The towel over the bathroom mirror turned a little, though no air moved. A corner fell, showing a strip of glass as thin as a ribbon. In that thin strip, letters began to bloom backward, wet and slow. S-A-R-A-H. The lamp flickered. The room felt like it had tilted a degree. From the doorway, where Grace had stood, there was nothing now but air. The towel slipped another inch. The strip of mirror widened, and from the glass, a small pale hand pressed outward, fingers splayed, as if feeling for the wind. The pale hand pressed harder against the mirror, flattening its fingers as if it could push through. The glass didn't break, but it rippled like pond water after a stone is dropped. Sarah gripped the edge of her blanket and pulled it over her head, heart pounding so hard she felt it in her teeth. Don't look. Don't answer. The hand slid sideways, leaving streaks in the fog, and disappeared. For a moment, all was still again. Then the voice came, closer, sharper. Sarah, tell me you see me. She squeezed her eyes shut tighter. 1 lamp, 2, 3. Think of the porch. Think of the trees. But the sound shifted. It wasn't only in her head anymore. It filled the room. Emily stirred, rolling onto her side. Jacob whispered in his sleep, No. Sarah pulled the blanket from her face and saw the towel slip fully from the mirror, dropping to the tile like a dead bird. The whole surface clouded, swirling. This time, the voice rose from under the blanket like wind in a bottle. Low at first, then clear enough to understand. Listen, it said. Listen to what I remember. Grace's hand flattened on the doorframe. Don't let it finish, she warned, breath thin. If it finishes, it keeps you. Sarah drew Emily and Jacob close on the bed. Mark stood between them and the covered mirror, one hand on the blanket, the other gripping the lantern's handle like it was a shield. The voice hummed a slow, sad tune. Children had small shoes, it said, lined up by the door. A woman tied ribbons. A man counted money with tired hands. The air smelled like sugar and soap. Outside, the wind moved the moss like waves. Images pressed against Sarah's mind. Tiny shoes, or ribbons slipping, moss like water. She shook her head and whispered to the kids, Think of the porch lamps. Count them. Emily mouthed, 1, 2, 3. Jacob squeezed her arm in time. Grace nodded. Good. Keep your minds busy. The blanket lifted an inch as if something breathed under it. Mark pressed it back down. Not tonight, he said, voice steady even though his fingers shook. The voice sighed, almost pleased. They always said not tonight. It murmured, but the night came anyway. A soft tapping started beneath the mirror, counting patient 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. The lantern flickered. The room smelled faintly of gardenias, then of dust after rain. Sarah focused on real things. Jacob's warm shoulder, Emily's braid, the scratch of the blanket's edge against Mark's knuckles. Tell us something kind, Sarah said suddenly, surprising herself. Her voice was calm, like talking to a frightened animal. Tell us about the porch when the light is good. Grace shot her a quick look, half warning, half wonder. The voice paused as if thinking, then softened. Mornings were soft, it said. White porch, hot tea, a book left open and the page never lost. Laughter, a song with no words. The cottage eased, a quiet settling over the walls like a blanket pulled up to the chin. For a few breaths, the air warmed. Then the voice turned. But afternoon is long. It went on. And sometimes the door does not close. The blanket tugged again, harder. A corner slipped. Mark shoved it back and braced the chair against the vanity. "You're not telling that part," he said. "It always tells that." The voice went quiet for a breath, as if listening to her pictures. Then it told the worst part the way all bad stories do, softly, as if that could make it gentle. The door didn't close, it whispered. The room filled with breath. The glass took the faces. The house learned the names. Grace's jaw clenched. "That's enough," she said, and for the first time her voice had steel in it. She lifted her other hand and pressed it to the frame above her head. The green scarf brightened like a leaf in sun. "Come away," she told the voice. "Use me if you must. Leave them." Something moved under the blanket that wasn't the family and wasn't the wind. The air hummed like bees inside a wall. The strip of mirror shook. Grace closed her eyes. Her edges blew thin, then pulled back, thin, then back like a candle fighting a draft. "Threshold," she said through her teeth. "Stairs. Door. Mine." The eye in the glass blinked for the first time. The voice sighed again, but this time there was a crack in it. "Always you," it said to Grace. "Always the handrail." "Always," Grace said, "as long as I can stand." The room steadied a little. The lantern strengthened from weak to sure. Sarah could breathe without counting first. For one heartbeat, everyone thought the tide had turned. That was when the mirror smiled. Not a face, just the glass itself curving in a way glass should. The fog swirled into a mouth shape as wide as the frame. The blanket yanked. Morning came pale and soft through the Spanish moss. The oaks stood tall and innocent, as if they hadn't watched the night unfold. Birds shouted their songs without fear, and the porch smelled of dew and bread. Mr. Carter appeared with tired eyes and steaming coffee. He didn't ask what happened. He only said, "Breakfast is ready." At the table, the family ate in silence at first, too many words pressing behind their lips. Finally, Jacob whispered, "Did it really try to take us?" Mr. Carter set down his cup. "It tries with everyone," he said. "Some hear only whispers. Some see faces. The important part is you walked out with each other." Sarah touched Jacob's hair, smoothing it down. "We're together. That's what matters." Grace didn't join them for breakfast. When Sarah asked, Mr. Carter only shook his head. "She stand where she can. Sometimes the day is too bright." But as they loaded the car later, Sarah glanced back toward the house. On the porch, in the thin line where shadow met sun, Grace stood, faint as morning mist. She lifted her hand in a small, steady wave. Sarah raised hers in return. The scarf caught the light once, green and gentle. Then Grace was gone. They drove away, the road curling under trees, Spanish moss swaying like gray lace. No one spoke for miles. Finally, Emily whispered, "Mom, do you think Grace will be there forever?"